My bit of sharing today is about sustainability. Um, I know that we are a little bit theoretical today, so please stop me if at any point you don't understand or use the chat. Just put your question there and I can answer. So what is sustainability? I will be speaking about sustainability from three important levels of sustainability. The first one is financial, organizational, and then project, program, and impact sustainability, which is the third level. But to make it a little bit more easier and to make it a little bit more interesting for you, we will speak about the different levels of sustainability when you are writing the project. The sustainability that exists that we need before the project, during the project, and after the project. So the question is, why do we need sustainability in our projects? And I think, or at least this is the way I look at it, there are three important elements why we need sustainability. The first one is to ensure the steady flow of funds and the generating of funds to continue the project. Because as you know, some projects that we think of or that we would like to do in our organizations at YMCA require funds. So we need the funds. The second one is organizational sustainability to ensure proper working of the organization or anything that develops as part of the project. And the third one, to ensure the continuity of the projects and service programs in the future, to ensure that the project that we are thinking about continues in the future, if we want to continue the project. So how do we ensure sustainability before the project? The first thing is we needed to plan ahead. I think sustainability is important because we need to plan ahead. And this is something that you've already done when you were writing the project. We built a strong argument why the project is needed. So we spoke about the goals that we have been mentioning a lot throughout the last two sessions. The future of this project depends on the capacity to address the real problem. So if we are talking about helping, for example, the homeless people, we need to see what is the capacity, or we need to see how we are going to address this real problem. So we need to have a clear vision, we need to have a long-term plan, we need to have a project that tackles the problems, and a project that has concrete solution. The second bit is we need sustainability to build resources. And I think this is a very important aspect that sometimes when we are working on projects, we almost forget every time. The resources can be anything. It can be simple stationery that we need. For example, let's say we are thinking about telling the public about mental health. So it's about awareness, raising awareness. We are going to give away posters or leaflets to the public or to the community around us. So we need papers, we need printing, we need all these sorts of things. But it can also be human resources, and I think this is very important because when we speak about human resources, we are speaking about staff members that are paid. So we need to think about salaries, and we need to think also about volunteers. So we need to build a long-term plan of workforce and how it will work out. So we need to think about funding, training for paid staff, and we also create a sense of belonging and instill a sense of commitment. Because as you know, some people that come into our organizations, they come for a little bit of time and they leave. So when we are thinking about our own projects and writing our own projects, we need to think about our volunteers or those people who will help us to create this project and those people who will stay with us throughout the whole project. The third one, we need sustainability in order to guarantee a future. So basically, when we are talking about future, we are talking about a strong financial plan, because without resources, no projects can be developed. So in order to have a sustainable project, we need ways to finance long term. We need potential donors. When I say donors, are those people, organizations, people out there that help us financially. We need also financial priorities, because sometimes we need the money to issue leaflets, but then we need the money to pay the staff. So we need to think a little bit what priorities we have. We need a strategic plan and ways and means of funding opportunities. So we also look into options of not only donors or fundraising, but also other means of how we get funding opportunities. So a sustainable tip to think about is realistic. And I wanted to put this here because I think this is important. I think both Olga and Matthew mentioned it before me. We need to be a little bit realistic. And even Tina, she said, don't put a lot of words, make it short, because shorter is better. We need to make our projects realistic. I mean, I've put the world there, and we can think about opening a YMCA on the moon, but dreaming big is good, but dreaming small is doable. So the smaller the projects are and the doable the projects are, I think it is better. We can have an ambitious plan, so we can think about many problems, we can identify many problems, but the issue with identifying a lot of problems is sometimes they are never solved, because we end up not having a time frame of the project, and we end up with a lot of financial burdens that we have to carry. So the best way forward and the best way that we make a project sustainable is to have a realistic agenda. And we start with one specific problem. We want to help, for example, young people who are unemployed. And we keep with that problem. We want to solve the problem. How are we going to do that? We set a time frame, which is something that we will speak about in the future and part of the project writing. And we set also a financial budget. So we have to think, okay, so in order to do this, we need, for example, money for the stationery. We need, for example, money to be able to hold a meeting with the young people. We need money, so when we hold this meeting with them, we offer them coffee, we offer them biscuits. So we need to think of all of these things before actually during when we are writing the project. How we ensure sustainability for during the project. Sometimes when even we have the perfect projects, and I've put a smiley, not a smiley face, a sad face there, coronavirus comes. I think you all are aware with this ball coming running after us. To give you an example, in New York City, 2.3 billion were lost from a capital budget, a fund that supports large investments for sidewalks, playgrounds, park upkeep. So these stopped. Basically, this funding stopped. What did the government do? We need to think about these things, because I think Corona is the best example to give you about risks, and Matthew will speak about risks further on. To give you a better example about this crazy Corona and about risks and about how sustainable is important, I will give you a case example about YMCA in Malta. So when coronavirus happened back in March, I think March was when it came to Malta, YMCA in Malta lost around 140,000 euros. And we went crazy, because YMCA in Malta, in order to run all the services and different projects, we need around 800 euros a day, which is a huge expense. So what we did is we called and we sought 70 different donors and 5 different collaborations in order to be able to recover those 78% of the lost funding. So what was missing? Our approach was not really sustainable. We had 85% of the funding coming from one fund, one particular fund, and 70% of the resources were paid. So sometimes when we are writing different projects and you have the ability to do this whilst we are writing this project and whilst we are helping you, we need to ask ourselves these 3 important questions. The first one is, did we plan ahead? And we need to think about, do we have a clear vision? Do we have a realistic agenda? Do we have a long-term plan? Are we really tackling the problems? Do we have concrete solutions? The second one is, did we build resources? Do we have enough resources in order to be able to carry this project? So we need to think about human resources, such as volunteers, who will be the people helping us, long-term plan of workforce, people that stay with us throughout the whole term of the project, the funding, and whether training is necessary in order to carry out this particular project we are thinking about. And the last question is, did we guarantee a future? Because the future is important, and I will speak more about it. So we need to think about ways to finance long-term. We need to think about financial priorities. Maybe the coffee is not important, but the leaflets about mental health are important, to use the same example. Do we have a strategic plan? And are there any funding opportunities in our own country that we can apply for? Maybe this is something new for us, something we didn't do in the past, but we can seek out and we can ask for help and we can see who can fund our project. Another sustainable tip to think about are risks, but I will not go a lot into risks because Matthew will speak about it. Risks, the way I see them, are like the rain in a sunny day. You know, it's a sunny day, especially in Malta, and then suddenly it rains. But we can prepare for some of them. So we need to keep in mind this Corona example who hit us all over the world, and we need to think about risks before when we are actually writing the project. How we ensure sustainability for after the project. And here comes the bit when I said I will speak about the future. So when proposing a project, we need to, and please look at the bold words, the black ones, we need to imagine after implementation. So what we're asking you to do is to write a project and carry it if possible. But when we are writing big projects for our own organization, we have to think about what happens after we implement that project. And this is a very important aspect of sustainability. So we need to imagine how its main inputs can become starting points. This is something that Olga already mentioned today. We can think about how our input, like giving employment to young people who are who are unemployed, for example, can become starting point, can become a new different project. We need to think about after this project, it can lead to new project. So for example, I don't know, we are giving shelter to homeless people, they become independent. What do we do after? Shall we stop there? Or shall we create a new service, for example, where people who were homeless before, they come and teach the homeless that are living at the shelter? That is a new project. So we need to think about implementation, which means making new partners, new collaborations. And I think that starting points lead to new projects, to collaborations. So when we are thinking about what happens after the project, we need to think about collaborations as well. And collaborations gives access to fundraising together. So that is a huge number. So what I'm saying is, in order for our projects to be sustainable, We also have to think about other organizations out there who are doing the same work, who are doing similar work, people in the private enterprise that believe in our projects, because reaching out to the others out there makes it easier for the project to be sustainable, to happen, to flourish, to become better, to create new projects. And here I wanted to speak a little bit about donors, about these important people when we are implementing our project. What donors want to hear when we want to collaborate? The problem or the solution? Because I think this is a fine line. This is a very delicate, in a way, situation. Do they want to hear about what the problem is, that there are a lot of young people who are unemployed, for example? Or do they want to hear the solution that we are bringing in the project? This is something that we mentioned today. And I think that donors look for the impact, as Olga mentioned already. And the impact is a really fine line. So the problem, we know it, but we really need to make an emphasis about the solution that we are bringing with this project, because donors look at that. They look at the impact. If we want to be sustainable, we have to have a big impact, because a project can end. What we're saying is a project can end. Maybe we will do this project for 4 months or 6 months, it can end, but the impact should continue. For a project to be sustainable, we have to come at the conclusion, for example, that out of 10 young people that were with us in this project, 6 of them are now in employment, and that is a big impact. So sustainable impact means creating and developing partnerships. And I think that in civil society organizations and NGOs, creating partnerships is a very important aspect. We need to seek out there those people who believe in our values and those people who can help us. Involve key stakeholders. Key stakeholders is also a very important aspect and a very important element, because these are the people that not only believe in what you're doing, but also those people who can pass the word of what you're doing, those people who can bring more people to you. We need to evaluate the project, which is something that we did today as well. Build capacity of staff, volunteers, and others that believe in the project. Developing marketing and communication plans. Diversify the funding. This means that don't do the mistake that YMCA in Malta did. The funding needs to come from different sources, because otherwise comes the risk and then you've had it. And avoid drifting away from the mission. Let's not forget what the mission is, what we started from, what the goal is, and the pit setting. How are we going to actually achieve that important goal? So let's review some sustainable concepts. 3 important elements, or if I can use the pit setting, Tina, as well, what makes sustainable is these 3 important elements: the financial sustainability, organizational sustainability, and the project impact, program impact sustainability. So when it comes to financial, something we did not mention, how can we make the project sustainable? We can sell products. We can give services that are paid and people pay for the services. We can get donors to help. And remember, diversify the funding and create resources. The second one, organizational, we need to have volunteer engagement. We can partner up, we can involve key stakeholders. And an important thing is that we communicate and we outreach. It is something that a project, to be successful, to be sustainable, it does not mean that we do it on our own. And the last column, we can involve the community, because the community is an important aspect. Without the community, there is no YMCA. Involve governments and local organizations. Don't be afraid about speaking up. Listen, this is our project. We are doing big work. We are trying to get all young people into employment. But we also need to think long term and integrate sustainability in all that we do. More examples, how it can look in project applications. So if we look at the financial bit, we can say that the paid services will be established during the project. You are going to apply for other donors. You will double numbers of membership, for example, to get more membership fees. And you will elaborate modern financial strategy plan thanks to the project. If we look at the organizational aspect, the board members will be trained, for example. New partnerships will be established. Quality standards will be created. Systems of monitoring is set, and new staff will be hired. And the last bit, when we think about project programs and impact sustainability, new services will be launched and tested. Don't remember, each program will lead to another. There will be new equipment purchased for services. This is very important. For example, we can get funding which is tied to the project, but from that funding, we can buy new equipment. And it is something which is sustainable because it is left with you. It's something that you can use after that project is finished. The volunteers will have new set of skills, and the community will be much involved in new services. So I wish that our projects will be basically sustainable. But my last question to you as feedback, so, and even if you have questions, so I want you to think about one sustainable factor that we spoke about, whether it's financial, whether it's the organization, volunteers, anything that we spoke about or impact, which is missing or which is not yet developed in your own project, something which you didn't really think about so far. And we can share with the whole group. This is something I didn't think about, for example, volunteers, or I didn't think about how I will pay for the leaflets, for example.